The topic of sex for a lot of people brings a lot of nervousness, discomfort, maybe some fears, uneasiness, embarrassment. And I recognize that, but I want to say to you this and to your family. This is such an important topic for the family to talk about with the children of the family. Grandparents, we're talking about a tough subject today, or maybe not tough, but uncomfortable typically for many people. And that is the birds and the bees. How do we redirect those questions back to our grandparents when it's appropriate? So I want to say a few things first about just having those conversations in general. The topic of sex for a lot of people brings a lot of nervousness, discomfort, maybe some fears, uneasiness, embarrassment. And I recognize that, but I want to say to you this and to your family. This is such an important topic for the family to talk about with the children of the family. Parents, of course, are first line. If parents aren't able or willing, we need to be able to stand in and either have those conversations or to reinforce what the parents are saying to their children. If we, as the people who love these people, these young ones more than anybody else in the world, if we're not willing to have these conversations with them, trust me, someone will have the conversation with them. And they may lead them down a path that the family and our family value structure really doesn't agree with. So be careful, be sensitive, be willing to get over your own discomfort for the sake of the grandchildren and how they grow up and develop. There is a need for us to be involved. So how do we have these conversations and how do we direct the grands back to their parents when necessary? Number one, talk to your children. Discuss the family values with regard to sex and how do we propose that everyone talk about these issues with the young ones. Will the parents have those conversations? Do they want your help? Would they rather you stay out of it? These are things that would be important to know before those things come up. Before some young teen grand is asking you a question that you're not sure if you should answer or not, when a young person asks you a question like that, what they're demonstrating is that they trust you and they're looking to you for guidance and wisdom. And so we want to honor that trust by being honest, by being able to respond appropriately. That'll be much easier if we've talked with their parents first and decided as a family how we'll handle these things. Then be respectful of what your children say, how they'd like to handle these matters. After we've had the conversation with the parents of our grands, then we need to create kind of a strategy in our mind how to divert questions if they do come up. Remember I said, if a child raises these questions with you, they're placing trust in you. So you want to handle it carefully and divert it back to the parents in a gracious way. So here are my thoughts on that. First of all, pause the conversation and tell the child that it's natural for them to be curious and have questions about these matters. Don't make them feel like they're being weird or anything. Trust me, if you remember being a teenager or a young teenager, didn't you already feel weird enough just living in your own skin? I know I did. And so don't add to that, grandparent. Be a help to these little ones. We know that's what our desire is. So don't just accidentally create some unnecessary discomfort there. Tell them also that you're glad they're asking questions and that family is the place to ask those questions. If your children don't want you to venture down these paths, then tell the child This is just something that's so important that you really need to talk to your mom and dad about it. And then ask their permission to tell their parents that they have asked the question. And I think we don't want to betray trust that a child puts in us. So asking them if it's okay that you go ahead and kind of prepare the way with mom and dad does a couple of things. First of all, it does allow the parents to make sure the conversation is had at some point, but it also tells the child that you respect their trust in you and that you're willing to maintain their confidence and respect it. And that's important. Those are important communications lessons for children. And then follow up with the parent. Children sometimes struggle around these conversations. They're a little embarrassed. The adults around them might be embarrassed. And so follow up and just make sure that somebody does answer the questions that the child has raised. As you might guess from the way I'm talking about this, I was okay having conversations with my children. And I have already had some of the, how do you want us to handle this if your children ask questions? I've asked my son and daughter-in-law that question once already, and we're coming into the early teen years, so I'm sure it'll come up again. And I don't want to disrespect their wishes. I also want to be sure that the little ones that we all love get the best wisdom that our family can give based on our own family values. Final bit of advice is maybe consider offering to talk with the parents together with the child. If the child indicates that they're a little bit embarrassed to go to their parents, say, how about if we go together and we talk to mommy or daddy about this right now, if you're in proximity and can do that. There just are lots of ways to make sure that the conversation is had, and B, it's had in the most comfortable way for both the child and the parents and the grandparents, and that good advice is given. The last thing I want to add to having these conversations is really not so much about the conversation, but what your actions will convey to the grands with regards to these issues. So first of all, do your very best to model good relationship habits in front of your grands. I think when we look around our culture today and look at family dysfunction, a huge part of that really boils down to we don't communicate well. People can't read minds, and so often we expect our spouses, the people around us, to understand what we're thinking. That's not possible without speaking it. So model good relationship habits, and that means let them know. Speak to them about how important and valuable loving relationships really are in life. Okay, the more you've lived, the more you come to treasure those really, truly great relationships in your life. And I hope one of them is your spouse. Model respect for one another. Marriages aren't always respectful these days, and I think that's really important. When children see adults treating each other with respect, they learn to treat each other with respect, and they grow up into respectful adults. When there is a mistake or a misstep or a word spoken in anger, don't be afraid to apologize openly in front of grands. It's important that they see that. Sure, it's normal. There's always a little bit of friction. Even in the very best of marriages, it's possible to just get annoyed with each other and snap at each other or say something stupid. If you do that in front of the grands, be sure to apologize too in front of the grands. And then tell the grandchildren every once in a while how much you love their grandma or grandpa, depending on which one you are, so that they just know they've got a lot of people around them who love each other and love them. We've done that. Cliff and I have done that a lot. And it's always kind of delightful to see the little smiles that come on the faces of these little children that we love so much They don't fully understand adult relationships, but boy, do they know when love is around them. And when we say, "Oh, I love your or your papa," because we call Cliff Papa, "I love your papa so much," or he says, "I love your nanny so much," the children don't necessarily say anything, but they just smile because they're happy and they know their family is happy. That's good for them. It builds security, teaches them about love, and it teaches them that love is a lifetime, multi-generational emotion that is safe, healthy, and happy. All right, grandparents, go out there and be grand, and don't be afraid of these conversations. They're so important in the lives and the development of the little ones we love.